Hey, how you guys doing? It's your boy Beastly back out again with episode 3.1 of our The Potential Prodigy series. This is the series where I show you generally what stats to look for in good and or bad prospects of every single position group. Episode 1 and 2 will be linked in the description down below. I have a whole playlist on my channel. So if you're ever, missing context or you want to know the full scoop, I have playlists for everything. I have my How To Dynasty series, episode 1 through whatever on there as well. Episodes 1 through 3 so far of The Potential Prodigy will be there. And I'm about to make a playlist for my experimental scientifical videos. But why did you say Beastly? This is going to be part 1, part 1. Here's the thing. Love you guys. You guys mean the absolute world to me. You guys have been blowing up my channel the last several weeks. We are about to hit 4K subs. So hopefully we can hit 4K subs soon. I would greatly appreciate that. Thank you guys. But there are 7 archetypes for running backs in this game. Right? I thought 5 archetypes was a lot. I didn't realize how much data and how much analysis I would have of 7. Right? If you don't know how it works, basically, if you don't believe me, here's the little TLDR I guess I can show you on the screen while I yap. But there are 7 archetypes. You have contact seekers, you have east-west playmakers, backfield threats, north-south blockers, north-south receivers, elusive backs. But basically, that's 6. That's not 7. I also classify athletes as their own archetype, because athletes don't have the same stats of their brethren. So a dual threat athlete QB will on average have different stats than a regular, dual threat QB. So you exclude the athletes, that's 7. That's a lot of data. That is an immense amount of testing. And I don't have enough space on CFB to just keep loading up classes and keep running data points for all 7 groups. It's too much. After about 15 dynasties worth of data, it starts to just randomly start blooping and deleting things. People are telling me on my live streams that, oh, it's just not on your active screen. You can go search for it. It's still there. No, it just straight up bloops it. I have tried. I have searched everything. I've cleansed my stuff and it's still not happening. So rather than me losing the online dynasty or losing my other ones, I'm just going to, rip this video into 2 parts. We are going to be doing the first 3 archetypes here, and we'll be doing the last 4 archetypes in episode 2. Another thing. I do apologize making you guys wait, I think 2 weeks from the previous episode. Been very busy IRL stuff, Veterans Day, been dealing with a lot of personal stuff, so been very busy outside of YouTube world, but I'm trying to lock in. I appreciate y'all. I've never done one of these, so we're going to do this. If this video gets 200 likes, which I don't know if it's even possible, but I think the last video got exactly like 188, but if this video does eclipse 200 likes, I will stop everything I'm doing and I will crank out episode 2 of the running back videos probably later this week. So I'm going to probably upload this on Thursday. If you guys can crack 200 likes on that video, I will probably have episode 2 uploaded either Friday or Saturday. So I'll try to get both halves in this 1 week, but there's a little light goal for you guys. 200 likes, you guys will get the other half of these this week. Otherwise, I will probably move that to later next week. But yeah, that being said, we're going to be covering the first 3 archetypes in this video. That will be contact seekers, east-west playmakers, and backfield threats. Beastly, why are you covering those 3 archetypes? Well, it's really simple. These 3 archetypes are the main 3 archetypes in the game. What do I mean by that? Well, elusive bruisers, as you guys can see, they're just a hybrid of a contact seeker and an east-west playmaker, right? A north-south receiver is just a hybridization of a contact-seeking running back and a backfield threat, right? So why would I cover the hybrid archetypes when I can cover the main archetypes first? Which is precisely what we're going to be doing. This way, when you have the info for the contact seekers, the east-west playmakers, and the backfield threats, you can use that information to kind of deduct stats for the future ones. Obviously, it's not a 1-to-1, but you'll notice with all the hybrid trees, they do have immense overlay. So there you go. With all that being said, I appreciate y'all. Much love and support, and let's get into this probably 3-hour long video. So normally, if you guys have watched the previous episodes of this series, normally I start with players I have actively on my roster, freshmen, that way you can see their stats before we go into the scouting screen. But we're going to do things differently in this episode. The reason why is I don't really recruit any contact seekers. Like, I don't have a single one on any of my save files. They don't exist to me. I'll cover why a bit later into the video, but I don't have a single normal, impact, elite, or star dev contact seeker on any of my 4 active, 30-year dynasties, which is pretty unlucky. Next, I also don't really recruit that many backfield threats. I don't hate backfield threats, but I don't recruit very... I have one. So since we're going to be skipping that entire segment for contact seekers, and I'm only going to have one to show you for the contact or for the backfield threats, all I can really show you is East-West Playmakers, and I have like 8 of them. So I'm going to still do that in the video. That's not going to go anywhere. But rather than starting off with something that I have an overabundance of and then eventually, slowly working down to none, we're just going to start off with the stats, and then rather than me showing you them, I'm going to, yap and then do a compare and contrast of the ones I currently have. But so both will occur, just a little different order than usual. With the first archetype we are going to cover is in East-West Playmakers. The reason why is I think, objectively speaking, East-West Playmakers are, of these 3 archetypes, the best of the 3. And they are the only one of the 3 you can consistently scout to, see the dev traits. Beastly, what do you mean consistently scout? I'm going to blow your minds later in this video, so don't click off. But just know, I have learned a lot doing this episode at how bad the attributes are on the back or the scouting report section for these players. I really never thought much about it prior to doing this position group, but only after immense studying have I realized just how stupid this is. So as an easy example, we can get out the way early. As you can see, this East-West Playmaker, Corbin Montgomery, he has the normal stats: awareness, speed, acceleration, carrying, break, tackle, change of direction, juke move, spin move, ball carrier, evasion, catching. I would say those are all pretty good stats, right? They pretty much tell you everything the East-West Playmaker needs. But they're not all this easy. If you compare that to a contact seeker, let's go see what the contact seeker has. Awareness, speed, acceleration, carrying, break, tackle, change of direction, juke move, spin move, ball carrier, evasion, and catching. It's the exact same stats, which here lies the problem. So I've been reading comments on, my last 2 episodes on my streams. A lot of people have a hard time scouting running backs, and I actually had an immense problem myself scouting running backs too. I could not figure out a consistent rhyme or reason why some running backs were elite devs and star devs and why some were normal and impact. It actually did stump me for the first 2 days of data analysis. It was all over the place. Some running backs were really slow with, great stats. Some running backs were really fast with bad stats. It really felt like it was just kind of a BS nonsense, just throw it up in the air and randomize it, and that's their dev trait. But that's because you weren't getting all of the information. You weren't getting the data required to make an actual assessment. What do I mean by that? As you could probably guess, a contact-seeking running back doesn't have good juke move or spin move. That makes sense. They're a physical, less elusive back, right? Compared to their brethren being the backfield threats and the East-West Playmakers, contact seekers are less elegant in the hips, if you know what I'm saying. But what they do very well is trucking and stiff arm. But you wouldn't know that because if you look at the back of the scouting report, trucking and stiff arm's not on the thing, which is really stupid. The scouting reports for every one of these running backs, and it's not just these 3, it's literally all 7 archetypes, don't show you their important stats. Well, some do, some don't, right? So if you're wondering why some contact seekers are awful and they're elite dev and some contact seekers look great but they're normal dev, that's because the outlier stats you're looking for, you physically don't have access to. Again, for contact seekers, that is strength, that is trucking, that is, stiff arm, stuff like that. And it's not just contact seekers either. Backfield threats obviously are meant to catch the ball. They're basically a receiver at running back. That's their purpose. Yes, can they still run the ball? Yes, do they have juke and spin move? Yes, they do. But generally speaking, the point of them is to catch the ball. If you look at the scouting report for these running backs, you only get one of their catching, which is regular catching. You don't get to see their catch in traffic. You don't get to see their spectacular catch. Hell, you don't even get to see their short and medium route running, which kind of matters for a backfield threat. Not kind of, it's the most important part of a backfield threat. So when you're doing your scouting for specifically these 3 archetypes, you kind of can't fully scout them if they're a backfield threat or if they're a contact seeker. You can't. Because the stats you have to look at, you unfortunately don't have access to till you've already recruited them and they're in your depth chart. So sticking onto this theme of me showing you just how absolutely horrid the scouting report is for running backs, and I'm sure I'm going to find more positions where it's really bad down the road, but specifically for running backs, it's atrocious. We only saw this gentleman's catching, this impact dev backfield threat. right? Always is catching, which is, pretty good at 75. Not the best, but pretty good. He has 69 catch in traffic, which is very important for, again, a backfield threat. He has 65 spec catch, which, again, is very important for a backfield threat. But you don't get to see these stats till they're already on your team. You don't get them technically on your team until after the transfer portal. So you don't know if the person you're pursuing, if they're a backfield threat or if they're a contact seeker, if they're worth a damn until that point. Now, I'm going to cover, again, a little bit into the video, how you can kind of try to mitigate this. But considering you don't have access to again, their most important stats, it kind of fucks you. Again, another example. You don't get to see short route running on a backfield threat. This stat matters a ton. We're going to ignore this guy. He's been upgraded, but short route running matters so much for backfield threats. In fact, short route running is one of the major stats you have to look for a good backfield threat. The problem is, though, you can't see that stat again until they're on your team. Then you have medium route running, and if you keep scrolling through all of their stats, there is no deep route running, right? It goes short, medium, and that's it. There is no deep route running. You can scroll through every single stat they have on this depth chart. There is no deep route running, which is nonsense because your running back can run deep routes. Is it very common? No, but they can. And just to show you also how stupid this game is, and this might make a whole separate video. Actually, let me know down below if you would like me to spend a whole video yapping about this as like its own topic. But if you look at the depth chart, there is no deep route running. But when you go to upgrade running back, specifically backfield threats, you can upgrade deep route running. So how can you have deep route running not on the depth chart? It's not a singular stat anywhere. If it was, it'd be right here. But yet the player can upgrade it. Basically you're lying. You're actually you're full of shit. Actually, basically is lying, misinformation. As you can see, we'll talk about Sam Horn a bit later on in the video. But I had to simulate all the way till the next season to get Sam Von Horn on the roster of someone, go into their coach, and then go to upgrade him and scroll down and find his deep route running. So EA, please fix your game. I don't understand why this is a thing, but as you can see, Sam Van Horn clearly has deep route running. His is 62, which for the record is very high. That's really good. But you can't see it in the depth chart. So not just are you getting screwed over here by not getting the player stats that you have to get to properly evaluate them, but the stats also aren't showing up in the depth chart, which then begs the question, if they don't have deep route running on the depth chart, does deep route running even matter? So I don't even know. I don't know. Clearly it must matter because you can upgrade the stat, but if the stat doesn't exist in the depth chart, does it work? If a tree falls in the woods, then does anybody hear or see it? I don't know. I'm going to hope the stat works, but it tickled me pink that for contact seekers and backfield threats, you get hardly any good information on them because all of the stats you need for them is not on the scouting report. If you think you're going crazy with getting generational contact seekers and backfield threats, but they look horrible, that's because, again, the stats you're looking for aren't there. They don't exist, which again goes back to my original point and why I'm yapping, just wasted 8 minutes, yapping and complaining. But that is the reason why the East-West Playmakers are objectively the best running back archetype in the game, because unfortunately, you can see everything you have to see, right? You don't have to wait for an East-West Playmaker to get on your roster, go into your depth chart, and look at their stats to see if they're good or bad, like you do for the contact seekers and the backfield threats. You can just do that on the scouting report. So I was wondering, again, when I was compiling my data points, how in the world do I have 9 different Elite Dev East-West Playmakers on my various dynasties, but I have 0 contact seekers and 1 backfield threat? Well, the answer is when I'm, again, scouting them, I'm obviously going off the scouting report. If my data is not in the report, I'm going to judge them differently, along with many other factors that we'll cover in this probably hour and a half long video. But so yeah, if you didn't know any of that, please slap a like on the video. And for the second comment question, or the official comment question of the day, we'll do it a little early. Leave a truck emoji down in the comments down below. That way I know you've watched this far into the video. But yeah, the fact that there's stats that you can upgrade that don't exist in the depth chart is very concerning, and I really hope that there's not many more positions like that, but I have a feeling there is. So that's very unfortunate. But yeah, all that yapping aside, what are we looking at here, basically? All that to preface this. East-West Playmakers are both objectively and, I guess, subjectively the best running backs because unlike everyone else, you get to see what they're working with, and generally they have the best stats. So, generally best stats, what does that mean, basically? Now, I have several East-West Playmakers here, as you guys can see. Some normal dev, some impact dev, some... Actually, I don't think there's a single elite dev in this file. Ignore these athletes. They don't count because, again, I count athletes as their own archetype. But basically, why are they the best objectively and subjectively? Well, here's why. Of all the archetypes, on average, they are the fastest, which really doesn't surprise me, but it did shock me how fast they are compared to everyone else. Easy example. The slowest person I was able to find that was a 4 to 5 star East-West athlete, that he was a bust, was 89 speed. An 89 speed East-West Playmaker, which was the slowest I could find, again for 4 and 5 stars, is still better than most of the backfield threats and pretty much every single backfield seeker or contact seeker I've found. So it's kind of funny that even the slowest East-West Playmakers are still faster than the other two, which speed is king in Madden. Speed will always be king in Madden / CFB. Speed kills. So why would you choose a running back? Like, again, we'll get to the contact seekers and backfield threats in a bit, but on average, they have mid 80s / low 80 speed, whereas these guys have on average high 80s and low 90 speed. So it's kind of not even comparable how much faster they are to everyone else. But Beastly, it's just one stat. I hear you aggressively typing in the comments. I agree. Let's go down the rest. On average, they have high 90s acceleration. This is varying between 91 acceleration and 93 acceleration. So they're pretty tight spread there. Their awareness is also pretty tight as well. 65 to 69 consistently. Did not find a single person with 70 or above awareness as an East-West Playmaker 4 or 5 star. I'm sure, again, outliers do exist. The stat averages I'm giving you could mean absolutely nothing if you just get the luck of RNGesus to be on your side. Yes, there are 99 speed running backs. Yes, there are really slow running backs. That's just how randomization works. But generally speaking, by and large, the average. Most have high 60s / awareness. Couldn't find one that had 70 plus. Does it exist? Probably. Did I get one in my sample size? No, not really. Or maybe I got one, but like it got washed down. Anyways, carrying. This stat is so important. We're going to loop back to the important stats momentarily, but carrying is so important. Those honestly vary between 70 and 77. 77, I think, was the highest carrying, or maybe it was 79. It was basically low 70s and high 70s was the average, which is a pretty wide average, right? That's almost a 10-point swing between the lowest and the highest. And there's a reason for that. Well, again, we'll loop back momentarily to explain that. Next was break tackle. Break tackle had a very, very, very tight range, being 70 to 73, which, again, you're going to notice a trend here. All the stats that have a very tight cluster, like break tackle, like acceleration, stuff like that. The tighter the spread is on the averages, the less variation you'll see, meaning the less important the stat is. If every running back has the same acceleration, acceleration is not an important stat. If every running back has the same break tackle, it's not an important stat. If that makes sense. For COD, or change of direction, again, this was a very, very, very tight spread between 84 and 87. In fact, the gentleman who you're looking at right now is the slowest of all the ones I got was 84, which is kind of insane that was the slowest one there was. But the highest was also 87. Again, outliers do exist. I'm sure you can find higher than that. But generally speaking, it's a 2 to 3 point spread, which is nuts. And I could just scroll down here and just show you some examples real quick. As you can see, 84, 87, 84, 84, 84, 85. Doesn't count. He's an athlete. So there you go. Again, this is only 6. I have many classes and many things loaded up for this video, but just from this incredibly small sample size, I will, again, I'll show you more throughout the video, but the general average is somewhere ballparking it between 84, 85, and 86, and 87. 87 obviously being the highest, 84 being the lowest, which, again, if the cluster is very small, that means the cluster doesn't matter. If the cluster doesn't matter, you can kind of skip over it. Speaking of stuff you can't skip over, juke move. Juke is just like break tackle, or excuse me, juke move is just like carrying, where its range is literally 70 to 80. It's a 10-point range, which, again, there's a reason for why it's a 10-point range. But yes, there's a 10-point range there, which we'll talk about momentarily, why that's relevant. For spin move, it's a very tight cluster with spin move. Its lowest I found was 68. The highest I found was 72. So a very tight 4-person cluster. Ball carrier vision was varying between 76 and 81. So basically high 70s, low 80s. Very tight cluster again. And then lastly, to round off, was another very kind of wide cluster in catching. The lowest I found was 62 catching, and the highest I found was 70 catching. So that one's, again, very wide. Basically, why do you keep bringing up the wide and, shallow clusters? Well, the wider the cluster, the more important it is. And if you can kind of guess from the data I just read you, the only 3 stats that really matter for East-West Playmakers is juke move, carrying, catching, and ball carrier vision. You can pretty much ignore their awareness, ignore their speed, ignore their you can pretty much ignore every other stat. And as long as they have very good catching, ball carrier vision, juke move, and carrying, 9 times out of 10, actually, that's a bit of an exaggeration, like 7 times out of 10, they're gonna be good. Like, the fact that you could legitimately ignore most of their stats on the scouting report and find good East-West Playmakers, to me, is very sad. Now, obviously, by no means am I saying should you solely tunnel vision things. Obviously, have things in perspective. But there's kind of a simple trick here for East-West Playmakers. Of those 4 stats that do matter, there's only one of the 4 of them that matter the most. So the other 3 are still important. They're just significantly less important on the grand scale of things. And the number 1 most important stat is juke move. Juke move, if it's an 80 plus, the odds of them being a dev trait is almost 100%. I think of the 50 or 60, 80 plus juke moves I found of the East-West Playmakers, I think all of them but 3 were impact dev or better. The only 3 that were normal devs were all 5-star busts. So maybe if it's less than 80 and it's a 5-star juke move, that's why they're normal. But either way, almost every single juke move 80 plus I have found, whether they are 4 or 5-star variety for East-West Playmakers, they have a dev trait. And I'm not just yapping. I'm going to show you momentarily. I'm not full of shit, right? Example right here. Corbin Montgomery's been on the screen the whole time. Star dev, 80 plus juke move, check. In the second save file I have of a second class, Chip Schuler over here, as you can see, is 84 juke move, which is the highest juke move I found during this entire time of testing. Elite dev, I think he's actually generational. I don't think he should count as elite, because if you guys don't know, there's like basically different thresholds for dev traits, right? Not every elite dev is, weighted equally. Not every superstar or star dev is weighted equally. Not every impact dev is weighted. Like, things are weighted differently. There's like a spectrum. I'm going to count Chip Schuler as elite, but I actually think he's generational because of his other stats. 80 plus ball carrier vision, 68 catching. Like, he's insane. So he might technically be generational, but for this, it doesn't matter. 84 juke move is significantly above 80, and as you can see, he's elite dev. So there you go. In the third save file I have, as you can see, I lied. That other guy was 1000% elite dev. This guy is generational, right? 5-star gem. You can just ignore the gem. As always, gems don't mean diddly dick. I can tell you if someone's very good just off their stats most of the time. And as you guys can see, 94 speed is significantly above average. 94 acceleration, significantly above average. We're not going to go down how just absolute biblical Toby Lemons is, but as you can see, juke move 80 plus, 82 to be exact, elite dev, a third example, and I think I might have like 2 or 3 more. I'm just going to go ahead and stop there at 3 examples because I have several from different dynasties of them already being on my team that are East-West Playmakers that just can add to that, but I think 3 is good enough. But generally speaking, like I mentioned, if your guy has 80 plus juke move, the odds of him having a dev trait, as long as like the rest of his stats are even average, is really, really, really high. The best analogy I can give for how important juke move is for East-West Playmakers, it's a lot like, I think I might get this backwards and my teacher might be disappointed in me, but I'm pretty sure the old adage goes, every square is a rectangle, but not every rectangle is a square. That's kind of the same thing. You can find elite dev and star dev players below 80 juke move. By no means am I saying 80 juke move is the cutoff point where, no, you can find elite dev and star devs below 80 as well. It's just, I have seen very, 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 very few juke moves 80 plus under the East-West category of playmaker and them not have a dev trait, right? Whether it's elite dev, star dev, or even impact dev. If they have 80 plus, they're more than likely gonna have a dev trait. right? Now, obviously, if you have a juke, and this is not for athletes, again, I'm going to repeat myself, this is for regular East-West playmakers. Athletes don't follow the same rules. And I think I have an example that I can show you right now. Here you go. Here's an easy example. This is the reason why I classify athletes and their regular counterparts as two different archetypes. This gentleman has 80 plus juke move and he's normal dev. He's pretty bad, but that's just because the thresholds for athletes are always different than regular versions. But Beastly, it's just one person. Here's another example of an athlete, East-West playmaker, 80 plus juke move, and he's normal dev like the guy in front of him, because again, athletes have different variations. Their stats are different. The stuff you're looking for is different. You can't use the same for both. But I'm going to really just beat the point home here. Here's a third consecutive athlete of an East-West playmaker who has 85 juke move, which you would assume he's generational like the other guys. But nope, he's normal dev because, again, athletes, East-West playmakers have different rules to play by than regular East-West playmakers. So for regular East-West playmakers, juke move is your baby. Juke move is what you need to succeed. The higher you go with juke move, typically on average, the more likely they are to have a dev trait. But specifically, I've noticed the really good, money line is 80. I think in my 50 or 60 or so elite devs I have seen of the East-West playmakers, I think 3 of them, might have been 2, but literally a few of them were normal dev. Everyone else was impact or above. So as long as they have just average change of direction, average awareness, average speed, just average everything, but really high juke move, and they're a regular East-West playmaker, the odds of them being very good is really high. The second stat that has almost as much weight as juke move, just a little less, is carrying. From my experience, carrying is also another stat for East-West playmakers that is directly correlated with dev traits, right? I have seen an insane number of high carry backs with high dev traits. Typically, on average, if you have a low 70s carry rating, you're going to be normal or impact dev, typically. If you have somewhere between 75 and 77 carrying, you have a very high likelihood of having a dev trait. Whether it's impact, star, or elite, you have a dev trait. And if you have anything 88 plus or basically high 70s, the odds of you being star or elite is very high. So I'm not promoting you just to ignore everything and just look at 2 stats, but there is a direct correlation between having 80 or 78 carrying and 80 plus juke move on East-West playmakers. But everyone from my testing, if you have high 70s carrying, so you're talking 77, 78, 79 carrying, and you have 80, 81, 82 juke, the odds of that player possessing a dev trait is very high. Or you could get very unlucky and get like a normal dev 5-star bust, and that's why he's a bust, but as long as they're not a red gem bust, the odds of them having a dev trait, I don't want to say is 100%, but you're talking like 95%. I think in total, I found one running back who had 80 plus juke move and 78 plus carrying and didn't have a dev trait. And again, he was a bust. So that might be only reserved for busts. But either way, the fact that you could basically scout these guys with 2 stats is a bit crazy to me. That is insane. I don't think it should be weighed like that, in my opinion. I think for a running back, right, speed should matter more. Hence, like, it's in the name, running back. But it, in EA's eyes, it's just carrying and juke move. I don't know why. So if you really want to find generational guys, that's kind of how you do it, right? Like if you just look at this example with Toby Lemons, just to go back to him for a moment. If you just follow the rules of does he have high carrying check? Does he have 80 plus juke move check? Just off those 2 checks alone, you know this guy is going to be very good. But then the moment you just even slightly look at the rest of his stats, again, the average speed is between 89 and 91. He has 94 speed. That is so far above average, it's not even funny. Again, the average acceleration was 92 to 93. He has 94. So he's above average in speed, above average in acceleration. The average awareness rating was, where's my paper, 65 to 69, and he literally has above average awareness at 69. Like he checks the first 3 boxes. Then he hits the carrying check. We already knew that. For break tackle, he has 73 break tackle. The average threshold was between 70 and 72. At 73, he has the upper echelon of break tackle, which again, for East-West playmakers is not very high, but for him, it's very high. So this dude is pretty much above average everything. For COD, the COD for this was 84 to 87? Yeah, 84 to 87, he's 87, above average COD. Spin move, was 68 to 72. He had 72 spin move. Like, the dude legitimately has above average everything. Like, he's in the upper percentile for everything. So it's just, I'm not, again, promoting you to just look at 2 stats, but if they have 80 plus juke move and 77, 78 plus carrying, and they're an East-West playmaker, and the rest of their stats are even slightly average, the odds of them possessing a dev trait is very, 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 very high. And again, if you put that formula to the test, the other Ohio State East-West playmaker that they got in the draft, let's go look at, or draft in recruiting, is this. Look at his juke move. Juke move, 73. It is nowhere near 80, right? That is the below average juke move. And look at his carrying. Below average carrying at 73. His juke move and carrying is significantly below average. So you can throw out his awareness. You can throw out his speed. You can throw out his acceleration. You can throw out his break tackle. You can throw everything out. Dude has below average juke move and carrying. And guess what? He's a bum. I mean, he's not a bum, right? Impact Dev's not terrible. But to me, Impact Dev and Normal Dev are kind of interchangeable. Just like how Elite Dev and Star Dev is interchangeable. There's such a little gap between those two groups that, to me, they're like one and the same. But I can assure you the juke move theory / carrying theory for these running backs, it does matter, I promise. But like I've mentioned, just like how every square is a rectangle, but not every rectangle is a square. I'm assuming I'm saying that phrase properly. As you can see, Floyd Newcomb over here, he's Elite Dev. He has 75 juke move and 74 carrying. Obviously, like I've mentioned, it's not a 100% foolproof stat. You do have to look at the rest. But in his example, even though he does possess average juke and average carrying, he does possess upper percentile for things like change of direction, for speed, for acceleration, for ball carry vision, for catching. He does it for break tackle. Even though his juke move and carrying is not the best, spin move is also very good at 72. Like, he has everything else is very good. So you can still find them. They do exist, right? Below 80 juke move and below 78, 77 carrying does exist. But statistically speaking, the odds of someone having above those thresholds and not having a dev trait is very small. Whereas the odds of someone having below 80 juke move and below 77/78 carrying, the odds of them being Elite Dev or Star Dev is very small. So you got to kind of pick and choose how you want to fish. You want to fish where the rare fish are, or do you want to fish where the average fish are? Either way, you're going to be getting a fish. So how well do you want that fish to be? Okay, so as we've just covered the stats, what to look for, what is important, what isn't important in a 4 and 5-star East-West playmakers. Again, not the athletes, just the regular ones. Now let's get to the part of the video where I show you real examples. I have a 83 overall running back named Sammy Lindsley. He's a redshirt sophomore. I know people are going to get mad. Where's the freshman? Look, people are sitting on my team for several years collecting tokens. There's a reason he has 104 tokens. He's not seen the field at all, as you can see right here. Bam. His overall is inflated because I maxed out his speed. We are not going to cover his speed. We are going to cover every other stat just to show you what I'm talking about. So let's put my theory to the test. What is his juke move? His juke move is 80. Check mark right there. What is his hands? His carrying is 79. So we're going to just omit the speed because, again, I have upgraded that, so that does not count. And I've upgraded IQ. That does not count. Those two stats I have physically touched. But the power, hands, route running, elusiveness, and hands I have not touched. Reason why I'm trying to inflate his overall and spend tokens. Speed was the first token, waste, and now I'm trying to get him to the 85 overall, but that's just personal stuff. But yeah, 80 plus juke move check, high 70s carrying check. What's his dev trait? His dev trait's elite. But hey, it's not so far, Beastly. You've shown that 4 times. There's no way you can show it more times, right? Right. So just to give you another, I think this is example 5 or 6 for the video, we have this gentleman named Alejandro Urshia. I don't. Can you just, EA, for this, like, one of my videos, please give me a guy with the name of, like, Sam or Michael or, William Jackson, just something normal, please. Alejandro over here is a sophomore. He sat my bench for 2 years. As you can see, I'm not upgraded him. He's just collecting tokens, yada, yada, yada. You get the point. He's a 5-star East-West playmaker, impact dev. He has a dev trait, so that's cool. Dev trait, nice. Let's look at his stats, shall we? Speed, 91 speed, nice. Acceleration, 92, nice. Juke move, 82, very, 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 very high juke move, nice. Hands, 78. So just, again, off of just juke move and hands or carrying, he has a dev trait. And again, he fits the long line. Now, obviously, his dev trait's not superstar or star / elite dev. It's not, it's impact, but either way, you get the point. He is 78 plus carrying. He barely hits that, but just high 70s carrying. He has low 80s juke move check. He has decent speed and acceleration. Route running's not particularly very good, but neither is his IQ. But I think if he were to get like full upgrades, he probably does cap out at a 99, but that's not the point. The point being, no, am I saying that you should only exclusively look at those two stats? No, always when you're recruiting, look at the general stats of everything. But if you need something to break the tiebreaker for specifically East-West playmakers, juke move carrying, the two best ones I can recommend. Those are by far the best. So to add to example 6 or 7, I lost track at this point, honestly. We have Caesar Massifilio. We're just going to call you Mephisto. Shout out all my Marvel crew who actually knows whom that is. But yeah, Caesar Mephisto over here is a redshirt sophomore from my Penn State rebuild. Ignore the 200 tokens in the top right corner. He sat the bench for 2 years. He's probably going to sit the bench for a 3rd year. I have not upgraded his tokens yet, so just pretend like he doesn't exist. Elite Dev, bottom left corner, East-West Playmaker. Let's go check out his stats, shall we? 93 speed, 93 excel, upper percentile speed, upper percentile acceleration. Check, check, check. Let's look at his juke move. 84 juke move. That's pretty freaking high. That actually ties the other juke move from that other guy, the Ohio State running back I found. So 84 juke move might be the cap, but that's still incredibly high. And then for his carrying, as you guys can see, his carrying is 79, which again is incredibly high. So I'm not saying it's 100% chance, but clearly, consistently speaking, how I'm able to just consistently find dev traits. If you just meet those two criteria, you're pretty much guaranteed impact dev at least. But if you meet every other criteria, it's pretty obviously elite dev. Power's not been touched, route running's not been touched, and IQ's not been touched. But yeah, this guy is a freaking freak. He's just, I think you get the point, right? I think we're close to an hour into this video for total recording time. I think you get the point. East-West Playmakers, look at all those stats, right? I'll have the stats in my Discord, I believe, or pinned down below in the video. Or actually, I'll probably keep them in the Discord just to promote my Discord more. But yeah, I'll have the averages and ranges in my Discord. But yeah, two most important stats, TLDR, juke move, and carrying. Now let's get on to contact seekers. So there is significantly more data and more stuff to cover for the East-West Playmakers. They were the first ones of the group. That's why they got the most attention. Number 2 is going to be contact seekers. The reason why I have contact seekers as my number 2 is really simple. I just don't recommend you recruiting them very often, right? I probably should have moved them last if I'm being honest, but I figured I might as well not forget that information, so set them at number 2 because you have the really, shitty stuff next to the really good stuff to remind you how good the good stuff actually is. Now, and by no means am I saying you can't find good contact seekers. Like the gentleman in front of me now, Denzel Carter, you can find good contact seekers. They exist like everything in this game. But generally speaking, most of the time, contact seekers are the slowest of the 3 archetypes here. On average, East-West Playmakers are the fastest. The second fastest are Backfield Threats. And third last is contact seekers. This dude is 91 speed, 92 acceleration, which is significantly higher than the average. A vast majority of your contact seekers you find are going to be like 84, 83 speed to like 85, 86. It's basically low to mid 80s. If you find anyone that's like 88 plus or 90 plus, it's a good thing, right? It's a good thing to be fast, especially in an archetype that's primarily not fast. By no means am I saying speed's the only stat you should look at. No, I wish it was that simple, but speed's pretty good, right? If you have a fast contact seeker, that's a pretty good sign. Is it the only sign? No, but it's a good sign. A second example I can show you of a fast contact seeker being Benji Tangelo. I can actually pronounce that one. 88 speed, star dev. There you go. Just 2 examples of really fast contact seekers, and they end up being pretty good. But more than likely, this is going to be the contact seeker you end up seeing in most of your 4 and 5 star reserve slots. As you guys can see, this dude is slow as molasses, being 84 speed. This man couldn't outrun a person with 1 leg. That's how slow he is with 84 speed. But he's star dev. Beastly, how is he star dev? And this guy is also star dev. How are both of these star devs when they are so vastly different statistically? Well, like I mentioned earlier in the video, you can't really judge contact seekers till they're already on your team. And don't worry, I'm going to show you what the depth chart looks like and what stats to look for. But this is the other reason why I don't highly recommend them, is that unless you get a really good roll of the dice and have one of your outlier stats be on the attributes that you can actually scout, these guys are very hit or miss. Like, again, I wish you could see their strength. I wish you could see their stiff arm. I wish you could see their truck. I think it's dumb. You can't see the important stats on a scouting report for that archetype. It's very dumb. But to quickly gloss over the stats, that way you have all of them. And again, I'll have them in the Discord after I post this video. But again, on average, most of the speeds they have are going to be somewhere between 84 and 88 per HP. 84 and 90 speed. If you find someone higher than 90 speed, that's crazy. Acceleration, again, ranges between 88 and 92, so a little range right there. Awareness, 68 to 72 on average, which is, I think, the highest of all three of these running backs. Carrying, on average, ranges between 81 and 86. And yes, you heard me correctly. Just like the other backs, basically, where you're looking for high 70s, for contact seekers, you're also looking for high carrying. However, the number is different, right? So for East-West Playmakers, you're looking for high 70s. So that's 78, 79, 77, just high 70s. For them, you're looking for mid to high 80s. So they do have, on average, the highest carry rating of all the running backs, which is pretty dope. And then they have, on average, the highest break tackle of all the running backs, being 81 to 82, which is pretty cool. Their change of direction on average is between 74 and 79. Their juke move is on average between 62 and 69. Their spin move is on average between also 62 and 69. Nice, great numbers there. Their ball carrier vision is on average between 67 and 74. Their catching is the worst of the bunch, which shouldn't be any surprise, is between 48 and 55, which is insane because that's so just such terrible carrying. Oh my goodness, that is awful. But then we get to the important parts. Their strength is always on average between 78 and 80. Their trucking is on average between 78 and 84. And their stiff arm is on average between 75 and 83. Now, here is the massive asterisk slash but slash whatever you want to call it. For contact seekers and backfield threats, I did not have time to go in and sim 20 weeks to see all of their depth traits and see all of their stats and go into every single team and jot down their depth chart stats. I apologize. I, again, have been a very busy week and there's so much data here that I didn't do that. So I didn't go and get data points for normal devs, for impact devs. I strictly recorded the data points for elite devs and star devs. So if your running back has below 78 strength and he's a contact seeker, more than likely he's probably normal or impact dev. I don't have the data points for them just because, again, I had to sim past the transfer portal to where they're on the team, take over their head coach, go into their depth chart, and then record the depth chart stats. It adds so much work for, especially if you're doing like even a 10-person class, doing that 10 times is ridiculous, let alone the hundreds of times I normally do this. So I will tell you the skewed data points because the sample size is not very large. But that being strength, trucking, and stiff arm. Everything else I can do, I've done hundreds of times, so that I got plenty of examples there. But specifically for strength, trucking, and stiff arm, the three most important stats they have, I just didn't do that for normal dev and impact dev players. Sorry, I again, apologize, but the fact I have to go and dig for their important stats is a failure on EA's part, not mine. So don't shoot the messenger. So just to show you what I was referring to by going through the depth chart, as you can see, I have a other coach that's in charge of Georgia Tech now. That way I could see the depth chart stats. This running back is a contact seeker. He's a 76 overall. Denzel Carter, great name, a star dev player, has 82 strength, which is very, very, very high. In fact, so high, I actually didn't jot that down. So again, the sample size for specifically strength, trucking, and stiff arm is very small. But that's just because, again, I don't have time to go through every single person, go through every single depth chart, and it's too much. But generally speaking, you're looking for the elite ones, whether it's generational, whether it's elite devs or star devs. You're looking for low 80s, whether it's 82, 83, 84, 85. I don't think I've seen anyone above 84. I think 84 was the highest I've seen, but doesn't mean they can't exist. Obviously, generational stats can spawn anywhere. You don't control where they spawn. They just spawn. Just sucks that you can't see if they're generationally strong at have the generational strength stat. You just can't see it until they're on your team. I do apologize. But yeah, strength between high 70s, low 80s on most of the good ones I've seen. Specifically above 80 plus is typically a good sign for elite dev or star dev, as I've noticed. Trucking, this also ranges from high 70s to low 80s, but just like juke move for East-West Playmakers and just like catching for the Backfield Threats, for them, trucking matters a ton. This can, again, be between high 70s and low 80s. Typically, the better the dev trait you have, I've noticed the higher the trucking you have. Just like the better juke move you have, I've noticed the higher dev trait you have typically on average for East-West Playmakers. Their stats trucking, right? Contact Seekers is just trucking. One-to-one comparison, there you go. Next is Stiff Arm. Now, Stiff Arm, I have noticed, does have probably the widest range. Trucking is pretty consistent. Strength is pretty consistent. Stiff Arm is pretty much all over the place. I've seen running backs with 75 Stiff Arm and be elite devs and star devs. I've also seen running backs with 85 Stiff Arm be elite devs and star devs. So Stiff Arm might be less impactful as to strength and trucking, considering the range is 10, or I've had, again, very small sample size, which leads to just issues. But I would probably treat Stiff Arm just like trucking and just like the strength. High 70s, low 80s. You would prefer 80 plus of the group, but that's the general range. And so, yeah, I wish these stats were on the back of the card or back of the player, but they're not. So you have to do this for every single person. Just to give you another example specifically for contact seekers, we have Benji Tangelo over here, again, on VT to show you the depth chart stats. He possesses 79 strength, which is not bad, right? Obviously, he wouldn't be star/elite dev if it was bad, but again, you would like to see 80 plus, but high 70s kind of fill the exact same metric. Trucking, again, high 70s, low 80s. He has 83. That's very above 80. That's really good. Stiff Arm, here's where you kind of get to the whole Stiff Arm thing, where I told you Stiff Arm has like the widest range of these metrics at 78. So again, he's fitting the high 70s/low 80s average, but again, you would prefer that to be 80 plus. And for the last one I will cover, considering that this was, again, just a lot of nonsense behind the scenes, here's an elite dev contact seeker. So this took an ungodly amount of time. I'm going to probably save this yapping towards the end for the overview/summary section, but essentially, getting an elite dev running back to spawn that wasn't an East-West Playmaker or a Backfield Threat was really difficult. I don't know what the spawn tables is for the player generation, but it seemed like I was getting a 1 to 2 elite dev running backs a cycle for East-West and like 1 to 2 Backfield Threats a cycle, but I would basically only get a couple star dev contact seekers. It was really crazy just how rare it was to find a 4 or 5 star elite dev contact seeker. I don't know why. Maybe it was just bad luck, but it does feel like of these three archetypes, contact seekers both get shafted analytically from the scouting report section and from the spawn section. Obviously, they're not the worst. We'll cover the worst later, but yeah, I am shocked that it was so difficult. I think this took like 17 seasons to find one. It was just bad RNG. Anyways, stats. Does he fit the criteria of those before him? 80 plus strength, high 70s or low 80s strength. Check, he possesses that. Go to his trucking, high 70s/low 80s. He actually has the highest of 84, right? I think of all the people I've tested, this was the highest I've seen. And ironically enough, he's also an elite dev. And he might actually be generational. I just realized he's 93 speed, which is almost 10 points higher than average. So this might be a little skewed to show you what a generational one looks like when I haven't showed you what a regular elite dev looks like, but I'm done looking at these garbage archetypes and or screens. So we're just going to roll with it for the video. 80 plus trucking, check at 84, and then 80 or high 70s/low 80s for Stiff Arm, check, he has 83. So yeah, he's the highest Stiff Arm truck/strength I have seen of any of them, and ironically he's the best dev trait of all of them. So it really does go to show you that just how for East-West Playmakers it was carrying and juke move that mattered, for these guys it's also carrying but a different metric, plus strength plus trucking plus Stiff Arm. It's just sadly you can only see carrying, and you really can't judge them based off solely carrying, which sucks. I've seen high carry contact seekers be normal dev. I've seen low carry contact seeker be normal dev. Carrying does matter, but in terms of the heaviest weight of all the stuff to matter, you can't see these three stats until you have the player on your team. So if you really badly want a contact seeker, first and foremost, I would recommend you just go get an elite bruiser. They're far easier to find. But if you, for some reason, really badly want a contact seeker, if I were you, I'd just go scout contact seekers till you found one that's abnormally fast, or one was a green gem. I'm not a big, person to support just green gem hunting in this series, but I think specifically for contact seekers, those are your two best chances, right? Speed's not, foolproof. You can find busts who are fast, but generally speaking, considering how slow the contact seekers are by and large, if you found one with 96 speed or 92, or in this case 93, there's no way in hell they're going to be that fast and not have a dev trait. I would try to avoid the slow ones at all costs. Again, not saying they don't exist. Elite dev ones and star dev ones can't spawn down there. They clearly can, but since you get such little information to work with, you have to do the best with what you have available, and the most remarkable stats given what you have available is carrying and speed, in my opinion. So have fun getting contact seekers. Again, they do exist. It's just, I wish EA made it easier to find them, but either way, I'm not in charge of the game. I simply play it. So last but certainly not least, we have the Backfield Threats, the group that I think I would rank overall higher than contact seekers just because they're easier to recruit, and plus they're better statistically on average. But East-West Playmakers are so far above these two, they're kind of fighting over second place, which is very sad. But anyways, that's not the point. The point is into the Backfield Threats. Now, these guys did spawn a lot more than contact seekers, and they were easier to spot than contact seeker, which is nice, but it was still annoying. So here's the data I have compiled. These guys are somewhere in the middle between, they are faster on average than the contact seekers, but they are slower on average than the East-West Playmakers. So they're kind of that middle area. I found their speed kind of ranges between 83 and 89 speed on average. So if you find someone 90 plus, that's really fast. If you find someone below 83, that is really slow, right? Typically speed is always better, but results may vary. But yeah, that's the general range I found, was 83 to 89. Acceleration, very tight cluster, 90 to 93, which is pretty interesting. Mostly of all the clusters, all the running backs are very tight acceleration, which is weird because I feel like that would matter, but it actually, I guess, doesn't. For awareness, they had the highest of all the awarenesses, I think, 67 to 72. What was the other ones, actually? Wait. Awareness, there's a 67 to 72, which is pretty snazzy, high 60s, low 70s. Carrying does range between 78 and 79, which basically does not have a range, which basically means it does not matter. So go figure. The carry rating mattered for the previous two. Carrying does not matter for this one. For break tackle, it is approximately between 58 and 61 on average, so not very good. For COD, or change of direction, theirs was 86 to 87, which is pretty high. Like, it's significantly higher than contact seekers, but I think that's also like average with East-West Playmakers, right? What's the COD for them? Yeah, it's the exact same average. So kind of weird how Backfield Threats share a lot of similarities with East-West Playmakers, but they're different. It's just odd thing I just noticed. Their juke move, 77 to 80 on average, so theirs is going to be high 70s / low 80s. Interesting metric there. Their spin move, ironically, was the highest of the bunch, being 70 to 73, which is weird. They have the highest spin move on average. That's odd. Ball carrier vision was between 70 and 74 most of the time, which again is pretty interesting. Now we get to the juicy parts, the part that made this video drag out way too long. Catching, as you can see on the bottom, is 75, which is nice. That's pretty high. The catch in traffic is 69 to 74, which is funny. The spec catch is 65 to 71, which is also really funny. Short is 75 to 77. Short route running has the tightest cluster from what I've seen. It's a very important stat, hence why it's probably that high. Medium route running was 59 to 63. But again, just like how the trucking, the strength, and the stiff arm stats were very skewed because I didn't actually get that many of them to write them down. That's the same thing for Backfield Threats for their spectacular catch, their catch in traffic, their short, medium, and deep route running. I basically just looked at the good ones and ignored the normal devs and ignored the impact devs. So this data, again, I will happily mention the data that is skewed when I do my stuff because I'm not going to hide anything, but yeah, I wish I would have had more time and or more energy and had easier ways to find this stuff, but unfortunately there's not, so go me. Where were we? And then their release on average was between 72 and 77 on average. But as I've mentioned, a bulk of their stats you actually can't see till they're actually on your team. That matters. Because to the surprise of absolutely no one, the people known as Backfield Threats kind of care about catching the football. I know, shocker. Just to show you what it would look like as an elite dev, as we saw Sam Von Horn earlier. I will show you the rest of his stuff. 75 catching, really good. You want, I believe the threshold for that was what? Yeah, mid to high 70s, so he's very good at 75. Catching, or catch in traffic, excuse me, was, I believe, high 60s yet and low 70s. He possessed the low 70s, which is very good. Spec catch, this was crazy, high 60s, low 70s. He had the highest from the bunch, the very small bunch I have scouted, so there you go. Kind of similar as you're noticing the high 70s, low 80s kind of thing, just repeated over and over. But that's kind of how this works. When you have like stats that are important for that archetype, it's kind of going to follow the same general line. Short route running, 76, which is really good. And then you have 60 medium route running, which is also really good. Unfortunately, you can't see the deep, but as I've shown you earlier from the picture I took earlier, I don't want to go in and do this every single time of simming to the next season. That way I can go into his upgrade screen, but there you go. There's his deep route running right there. And obviously I couldn't upgrade the guy because he's literally a freshman with no token. So there you go. So I'm going to include this mid video. I don't have the crazy amount of data to numerically test this. It's just a little observation I've noticed mid video. This could be wrong, but since a lot of East-West playmakers and backfield threats do share a lot of overlapping similarities across many different stat lines, I kind of noticed that just like how juke move being 80 plus for East-West playmakers with a great indication on if they have a dev trait, I've kind of also just noticed that all of the backfield threats that I have impact dev or star dev or elite dev, all of them also have 80 plus juke move too. So that might be a universal thing with them too. Since again, they do share a lot of similar stats, so it wouldn't shock me in the slightest if they also share similar, requirements. Here's an example of elite dev I have in one of my, I don't know what file I'm in, like my 16th or 17th save file here. But here's a file I have. Here's an elite dev backfield threat with 85 Cs. Pretty slow. But like I've mentioned, it's kind of hard to scout these guys because regardless of the stats they show on the attributes minus juke move, a bulk of their stuff that's important is in the catching stats. And I guess I can show you that real quick too. You know what? Just because I want to show you guys, imagine I've already scouted these players. I always got to this point. Like, imagine nothing's changed. This is what I have to do to get every single contact seeker and backfield threat data points. I have to sim all the way to National Signing Day and just do this. So after I simmed from week 0, got my board filled with backfield threats, I then scout them and then put some hours on them. That way they get drafted or recruited by me or someone else. We sim to then the point of bowl season where you can get early evaluation so you can see their dev traits there. And now we have to simulate from early evaluation all the way to National Signing Day. That way they're on the roster. And then I can go in and look at their stats. Again, boohoo me, I know. Pull out the world's smallest violin. I get it. Hee hee ha ha. But just to do one recruiting class takes like 15 to 20 minutes. Just to give you a small taste. I'm not going to edit any of this out. We're going to do this together while I'm yapping and ranting. But yeah, I would have to do this for every single recruiting class. Normally, I do about 50 per archetype and jot that data down. But as you guys can see, I can't do that because now I'm going to have to go in and find Tulsa, which I'm going to just guess they're a 3-star. They are... Wait, am I crazy? No. Are they a 2-star? Oh, they are a 2-star. That's interesting. So yeah, now I find the team. I go in. I become the head coach, which is Trey Lamb. Great name. Yada, yada, yada. Yep, I see. Go to view roster. And bam! That is how I would compile the data for each one of these, which we are looking for the backfield threat, which is right here. So yeah, in total, just to do one class properly is like 20 minutes, which is just so much work. But yeah, even though he's slow, 85 speed, very slow, you would expect them to be faster. Like I've mentioned, you don't really look at those stats, right? Juke move, which I have noticed recently during the video, that has correlated, but we're going to just pretend like that doesn't exist. Catching, again, we are looking for the ranges of The ranges are low 70s to high 70s. We are in the exact smack dab middle, which is pretty nice. Catch and traffic, we are also looking for high 60s to mid 70s. He's 74, which puts him in the upper echelon of that category. And then for spec catch, we are looking for 65 all the way to 72, which again puts him in the upper category for that as well. 75 short route running, which is pretty good. That puts him in the upper category as well. Medium route running of a 62 puts him in the upper half between high 50s and low 60s. So there's that right there. So yeah, it's kind of the hard part with them. It really is that the stats you need, aside from juke move, you don't actually get to see, which is pretty infuriating, if I'm being honest. Example 2 of the Backfield Threats possessing a dev trait with 80 plus juke move. There you go. Impact dev right there. Example number 3 in a random save file. He's 80 plus juke move. He's a Backfield Threat. He also is impact dev. Starting to see a trend here. Example number 4. Titus James. There's no way you spell James Jimes, right? That's not... It has to be pronounced something else. There's no way you spell I and James in the same word. Anywho, 80 plus juke move. Again, impact dev. Again, Backfield Threat, 80 plus juke move. Dev trait, W. Example, whatever, 80 plus juke move, impact dev. There you go. I think 4, 5, just arbitrary number, like 3 hours into the video. There you go. Even this guy, going back and re-looking at him from earlier in the video, I don't know, wait, have I shown him in the video? I don't remember. This is all kind of blurring together after several hours of recording and staring at the Clemson orange, which is burning my retina to this day. But I don't remember if I've shown you Marquise Johns. He's another Elite Dev contact seeker I found. Now, he doesn't hit the 80 plus like requirement nonsense, but as you can see, his is 79. So maybe the cutoff for everyone is like around 80. Again, I have no testing for this. It's just an arbitrary thing I've noticed while recording the video that since a lot of the East-West playmakers do have repetitive stat overlays, that they also kind of have the same juke move threshold, kind of. So by no means is this tested or data, just, again, just tossing it out into the ether. But yeah, let's go look at Marquise Johns real quick. I don't believe I've looked at him yet. He's Elite Dev, Backfield Threat. We'll go look at his catching and then wrap up this 2 hour and 48 minute recording. So going back to the point of just how many overlapping, similarities East-West playmakers and Backfield Threats do share, there's a normal dev East-West playmaker above Auburn in this depth chart, and as you can see, they possess the same juke move being 79, and they possess the same spin move basically 71 to 72. So again, I think there's a trend where they are going to have similar stuff if they're similar in nature. It's just weird. I don't know how I didn't notice that the entire time, but hey, things do. I am not perfect. I am human. So catching, we're looking for low to high 70s. This is low 70s. Okay, there you go. His catch in traffic is 69 to 74, which is bare minimum that. So probably, again, sample size very small. Probably done this for 12 to 15 players. So bigger sample size would give you more of a range, but still high 60s, low 70s. There is check there. Spec catch, we are doing the exact same thing. High 60s, low 70s is a 67, which is pretty high. Short route running, mid to high 70s is a 77, which is the highest I have seen, which is very high, obviously. And then medium is a 58 to 63, and his is 63. So he doesn't really have the greatest catching in the world, but in terms of the actual route running part, his is very, very, very high. Release 75. That's between low 70s, high 70s, 72 to 77. So 75 is smack dab in the middle. So there you go. That's why these running backs are so difficult to find, to develop, and or to just generally use. That's why a lot of you guys had a lot of fluke or have been asking for the comments for like, do the running back video. It's not really your fault. Right? As fun as it is to shit and rag on EA Sports, which trust me, I enjoy that. You can't really consistently recruit players if you can't see the stats you have to see what they are. I think the scouting report should definitely change depending on what archetype you have. And moving forward, I can't wait to go look at the depth charts for certain positions to see what stats are and aren't showing up. So even though I couldn't show you any personal examples of contact seekers just because I don't ever recruit them, and I showed you like 30 million examples of East-West Playmakers, here is the one and lonely backfield threat I have of all of my 30-year dynasties. I know, very sad. Anyways, 4-star backfield threat, star dev. Let's go check out his stats. Oopsies, he has 96 speed basically. I know, I have upgraded speed. Again, I am not going to use this as a metric point because, again, I've touched the speed, but I haven't touched anything else. If you guys don't know, my priming, strat, you basically have to spend tokens. That way you don't go to token cap, but you don't want their overall too high. Otherwise, they'll go to the draft. Speed's a great stat, just a token dump to just eat your tokens and not improve the overall too much. So just pretend like quickness isn't maxed, just whatever, just that is. Elusiveness, there again, going back to the whole juke move thing, being 80, there it is right there. So that's kind of odd to me that I didn't notice that the entire time, again, recording the data, but whatever. Hands, carrying, high 70s, check, catching 77, which, oh my God, his catching is insane, actually. Wow. He's like upper percentile for like everything. Yeah, that is insane. Then for route running, great short, great medium, awful deep. So yeah, he's a lot of stuff. So just my one, again, lonely example of me owning a player on my team that has the exact stats. Just pretend like the quickness was like 88 or whatever it was when I got him. It was probably, considering I've spent a lot of tokens on him, it was probably slow. He's probably like an 85 gamer, but I'm just assuming, I don't remember. But he sat the bench for several years. He will keep sitting the bench because I got running backs for days. But hey, don't take my word for it. Beastly has no idea what he's talking about. Impact dev, elite, star, impact, just keep recruiting / developing elite dev players like they nothing. But I appreciate each and every single one of you guys. Again, I do apologize for having to separate these two, the running backs, into two different videos. But as you guys could guess, I just covered 3 archetypes in this video. And the video is going to probably be close to an hour and a half long after I edit the video. So I do apologize. There's just no way in hell I could sit here for like a 6 to 7 hour recording and chop it down to like 3 to 4 hours just for the entire class. I apologize. Let me know down below if you did or didn't learn anything out from this video. A like would be greatly appreciative if you are this far into the video. I appreciate you. Thank you for the time out of your day. And yeah, this was just a very, very long data point, so I hope you learned a thing or two. And let's get into our shout out, shall we? As always, I hope you have a wonderful morning, evening, night, afternoon, or day, depending on whatever time you watch my content in the future. Like, comment, subscribe on YouTube. Drop me a follow or sub on Twitch. I would greatly appreciate it. And if you can, please become a member. Memberships support the channel a ton. You get early access to all the videos like you're watching right now, whether it's hours early, days early, or even a week early. Early access to all my videos, higher recommendations for future streams and future content, and much, much more. But yeah, you get much, much more. So appreciate that. Shout out to all of our goats right here on the screen who are members. Appreciate you guys. And yeah, I will see you when I see you. Deuces.